Decide exactly what you want. Decide exactly what you want. And the great majority of people really don't know what they want. They want to be rich, but what does that mean? How much is that? When? How soon? What are you going to do to get it? So decide exactly what you want. If you're married, sit down with your spouse and decide exactly what you want. Two people working together, a husband and wife working together on a single goal, multiply the power behind achieving that goal more than anything else. It's called the great mastermind, is the husband and wife working together. Anyway, number one is decide exactly what you want. Einstein said that if you cannot tell your goal to a 6-year-old child and have the 6-year-old child explain it to another 6-year-old child and both of them understand it, then you don't know what your goal is yourself. So ask yourself, is your goal so clear that you could tell it to a 6-year-old child and the 6-year-old child would not only understand what the goal is, but could tell you how close you are to it? Great test. It's a great test, the Einstein test. Number two is write it down. Write it down, write it down, write it down. There's nothing more important than writing down your goals, because if it's not written down, it's merely a fantasy. Now, they've done a whole series of studies at Harvard and Yale and Cornell and so on about the difference between students who type their notes and students who write their notes. The students who write their notes all get straight A's. The students who type their notes forget everything before the end of the day, because writing forces you to use three abilities: your kinesthetic ability, your physical ability of writing, your audio ability, you see it when you're writing, and your auditory ability, you say it to yourself when you're writing. So you activate the three major parts of your brain simultaneously, like a laser beam from a space station, zap, onto a piece of paper, and your subconscious mind accepts it as a command, and your superconscious mind starts to work on it 24 hours a day. Just write it down, write it down. And it's the most amazing darn thing. If all you did was write down one goal and leave this conference, your life will be different forever. And because all kinds of things will start to happen. And you'll say, well, that's a coincidence. I just wrote that goal down when I was in that meeting this afternoon, and then I got this phone call or something in the mail, or I saw something on TV, or something. It's just phenomenal. So step number one, decide what you want. Number two, write it down. Number three, set a deadline. Tell your subconscious when you want it. I want this by such and such a date. So every goal always ends with a use by date. In other words, I achieved this goal by this date. And you write it in the present tense. Number three is make a list. Number four, step number four is make a list of everything that you can think of to do. Just make a list, and as you think of more things, add it to the list. Keep writing it down, writing it down. And sometimes you think of something in the middle of the night, write it down, keep a pad of paper next to your bed, and quickly write it down so you don't forget it. Just write it down, write it down. That's number four, and this is really important. It's the great turning point, like a massive ship turning in the ocean. Your whole life starts to turn when you write down a list of the steps you're going to have to take. I don't recommend other people's books because I've written so many myself, and I summarize hundreds of books that I have read over the years, but there is one book that had a great influence on me, and it's called the Checklist Manifesto. Anybody read this book? The Checklist Manifesto. It was written by a doctor, an emergency ward doctor, and he talks about the value of checklists when you are trying to accomplish a goal, build a business, raise a child, whatever you want to do. He says, create a checklist. He said, everything in the world, this room, the car, swimming pool, everything follows a checklist. Everything requires a checklist to build it. And the wonderful thing about organizing a checklist before you begin work on a project, it has an extraordinary effect on your life. And what he does is he teaches in the most entertaining way how people who did not use checklists died, went bankrupt, the most successful people in finance in the world, how they use checklists in order to organize their financial life, business people. Anyway, it's the one book that I would recommend. It's a short book. It's just fascinating reading. It's called The Checklist Manifesto. Anyway, so take your list of goals and organize your list by priority. Make a checklist. What's number one? What's number two? What's number three? And so on. And as you get more information, change the list, reorganize it, write it, move things up and down. Step number 6 is to take action on your list. take action on the most important thing on your list. Do something, launch, get going, do it now, do it immediately. Get up and do something. It doesn't have to be a lot. It can be revising your papers, it could be making a phone call, it could be ordering a book, it could be something, but do something, which is sort of like the kickoff in a football game. Just kick the ball off as far as you can. And number 7, and this is going to make you rich, happy, popular, and thin. Number 7 is do something every day on your most important goal. Do something every day on your most important goal. So here's the exercise I'm going to give you to take home with you and do when you leave this. And by the way, from now on, whenever you bring on a new person, put them through this exercise. If they will not go through this exercise, do not waste a minute of your time with them, because they will never be successful if they won't follow your guidance. And here's the exercise. Take a clean sheet of paper and write down goals and today's date, and then write down 10 goals that you would like to accomplish in the next 12 months. Don't worry about 2 years or 10 years or 5 years. Just 10 goals you'd like to accomplish in the next 12 months, and write them in the present tense. Almost like you're submitting an order. And just write down, I earn, I achieve, I weigh, I drive such and such a car, I own. Whatever it happens to be, and the goals will be financial goals, family goals, physical goals, and so on. Write down 10. And then you take this list of 10, and you say, if I had a magic wand, and I could wave this magic wand, and I could have any one goal on my list within 24 hours, which one goal would have the greatest positive impact on my life? Which one goal? And go over it. And usually this will jump out at you. Jump out at you like a spider in a horror movie. It'll grab you. And put a circle around that goal. And that's a goal you transfer to a clean sheet of paper, and then you follow the 7 steps. Write it down, set a deadline, make a list of everything you have to do to accomplish it, organize the list into a checklist, take action, and then do something every day. If you'll just do this simple exercise, then you'll all be rich. You'll all be rich. Nothing can stop you but yourself. So number 2, the second C is the C of competence. And the C of competence says, it's very simple, is that you can only earn a lot of money if you're very good at what you do. And so one of the most important things you do is you break down your work into skills. And you say, what are the most important skills I need to have to be successful? And there's recruiting is a very important skill. Training is an important skill. Managing, motivating is an important skill. Leading, supervising, important skills. So what you do is you think, what are the skills that I will need to be in the top 10% of my field? You don't have to be in the top 1%. Just be in the top 10%, because there are no successful people who are not good at what they do. They are good at what they do, and they are good at what they do because they work at it all the time. Whether you're in sports or whether you're in music or chess or anything else, there's a wonderful study that's been written up, and it's called the it's called it'll come to me in a second. I find that because of these pains, my memory slips and it goes around in a circle like a merry-go-round, and it comes around again and it'll come back, and there it is. But basically what it said was, studying the most successful people is that these people spend far more hours becoming good at what they do than average people. The other people don't do it. And that everybody has natural abilities, but the ones who use those abilities transform themselves by really, really working hard at becoming good, one skill at a time. This is another thing that's really important. Don't try to be good at everything, because what happens is you just break down. You just overwhelm yourself, and you just give up. And you say, oh, I tried that before. I had an experience, which I'll pass on to you. When I was a young man, I was in my 20s, and I was in sales, and I was in cold calling sales, knocking on doors every day. And I was making 1 or 2 sales a week. I was living in a little rooming house with a bed and a floor and a little bathroom. And I was struggling. I could tell you within $1 how much money I had in my world at that time, because it was less than $1. And I worked, get up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. I'd be waiting at 8 o'clock in the morning when people came to work. I would knock on doors, office doors and business doors all day long. And then in the evenings, I'd go out and knock on homes and apartments. And And I would make call after call after call. I made hundreds of calls and with no sales. The first year I made more than 20,000 calls and only made a few sales, just enough to survive. And then one day I asked a question, which I'm going to help you with. As I said, of all the skills, what's holding me back more than anything else? And the answer was closing the sale. Is that I couldn't get people to make a decision. I was enthusiastic and positive and everything you could want is, and so on, and people were very interested and friendly, but at the end of the conversation, they would say those awful words. Let me think it over. Let me think about it. Or leave it with me, or can you get me some more information? The words I want to think about it mean goodbye forever. We will never meet again. And I was getting this all the time, so I made a decision. I still remember the time, date, place, sitting in my little rooming house when I decided I was going to learn how to become very good at closing sales. And I began to read everything I could find. I sent away 4 books. I did everything I could find to study the psychology and the techniques and methods of closing sales. In 1 year, my income went up 10 times. Changed my life forever.